There's something beautiful about being kind. It's one of those qualities we all admire, the quiet gesture, the gentle word, the patient understanding. Kindness feels pure, almost sacred. But over the years, I've come to realize something that's not often talked about. Kindness has a dark side. It's not evil, not malicious, but it can hurt us in ways we rarely notice until it's too late. The world praises kindness, but few teach us how to be kind without losing ourselves in the process. I've seen it in friends, in strangers, and in myself, that invisible fatigue that comes from caring too much, giving too much, or saying yes when every part of you wanted to say no. Have you ever felt that? That soft ache of being too kind for your own good? I remember reading Marcus Aurelius one evening, and one line struck me so deeply that I had to close the book. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." It's a powerful call to action, but it also reminded me that even virtue, if misunderstood, can harm us. Kindness, when unbalanced, becomes self-betrayal disguised as goodness. We live in a time where being nice is almost a social obligation. We smile through discomfort, apologize for things that aren't our fault, and offer help even when we're running on empty. It feels noble, but it can quietly erode our strength. The Stoics believed that virtue must always be guided by reason, not emotion. Without wisdom, kindness can become a chain. And if we're not careful, that chain can keep us from living truthfully, confidently, and peacefully. When I started reflecting on this, I noticed 8 subtle ways kindness can turn against us. 8 traps that slowly pull us away from our center. And I want to walk through them with you, not as a lecture, but as a conversation, a quiet reflection on what it truly means to be kind without losing your soul in the process. The first is something I learned the hard way. Kindness without boundaries invites exploitation. I used to believe that saying yes was always the right thing to do. If someone asked for help, I helped. If they needed time, I gave it. If they crossed a line, I forgave. But after a while I realized something strange. The more I gave, the more some people expected. My generosity didn't inspire gratitude. It invited entitlement. Seneca once wrote, "He who spares the bad injures the good." At first that line felt harsh, but he wasn't saying we should be cruel. He was warning us that kindness without discernment can harm both the giver and the receiver. Psychologists call it pathological altruism, when helping others actually creates harm. Maybe you've experienced this. A co-worker constantly leaning on you for help, a friend always in crisis, a family member who takes but never gives. At first, it feels good to be the dependable one, the caring one. But over time, your kindness becomes expected, not appreciated. The Stoics taught that we must act from reason, not impulse. Before saying yes, we should ask, will this help truly serve the greater good, or am I just avoiding discomfort by agreeing? Real kindness uplifts others without draining yourself. Without boundaries, you're not being kind, you're abandoning yourself. Take a moment to reflect. Who in your life keeps taking without giving back, and what would it mean to set a boundary, not out of anger, but out of respect for yourself? The second way kindness can hurt us is more subtle. Sometimes kindness is driven by fear, not virtue. For a long time I confused kindness with approval. I thought if I was kind enough, helpful enough, agreeable enough, people would like me. I'd avoid conflict, smooth things over, do favors I didn't want to do, all because deep down I was afraid of being disliked. Maybe you felt that too, the anxiety of saying no. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to be loved, love yourself." That line cuts deep, because when our kindness is a strategy to be loved, it's not kindness, it's negotiation, it's a trade. I'll meet your needs if you validate me. But Stoic love, philostorgia, is unconditional. It comes from inner stability, not insecurity. True kindness must flow from strength, not fear. When I realized this, I started noticing how often I said yes to avoid disappointment, both theirs and mine. But each dishonest yes is a small betrayal of your integrity, and eventually those betrayals accumulate until you feel resentful, invisible, and used. Ask yourself, how many of your kind acts come from genuine compassion, and how many from the fear of disapproval? It's a difficult question, but an honest one. The third shadow of kindness is the suppression of authenticity. Many of us grow up believing that kindness means being agreeable, that good people don't argue, don't say no, don't show anger. But that's not kindness, that's repression. Real kindness allows honesty to coexist with compassion. For years, I used to swallow my frustration just to keep the peace. I thought silence was strength, but peace built on silence isn't peace. It's tension postponed. The Stoics spoke of living in harmony with nature, and part of that means honoring your own nature, your truth. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself not to be overly compliant with others' opinions, for that is a kind of self-erasure. Modern psychology agrees. People who constantly suppress their emotions in the name of niceness often develop anxiety, burnout, even physical stress symptoms. Because every unspoken truth stays alive in the body. It doesn't disappear. It festers. Sooner or later, the pressure becomes too much. Ask yourself this: in which situations do you hide your truth behind politeness? How would your life change if you spoke with gentle honesty instead of silent compliance? The fourth way kindness can harm us is by weakening resilience. This one surprised me. I used to think that protecting people from pain was the most loving thing you could do. If someone was struggling, I wanted to fix it. But over time, I noticed that by constantly rescuing others, I was also depriving them of the strength to face difficulty on their own. Epictetus believed that adversity is essential. It reveals who we are. Difficulties show what men are, he said. When we shelter others too much, we rob them of that revelation. The same is true for ourselves. When we avoid conflict or discomfort under the guise of kindness, we weaken our tolerance for life's inevitable friction. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining potential hardships to build emotional readiness. Perhaps we need something similar, a premeditation of kindness. Before helping someone, ask, will this help make them stronger or more dependent? Sometimes the most compassionate act is to let someone struggle, to trust their capacity to grow. Think about where in your life you might be rescuing instead of empowering. Whose pain are you shielding because you can't bear to see it? The fifth dark side of kindness is that it can be mistaken for weakness. I learned this the hard way in professional life. The more understanding I was, the more some people tested boundaries. Being kind didn't earn respect. It invited manipulation. Seneca warned that it is the mark of a weak mind to be incapable of firmness. Firmness and kindness are not opposites. They're partners. Without firmness, kindness loses its power. Modern psychology backs this up. Research on personality traits shows that highly agreeable people are often overlooked for leadership, underpaid, and overworked. Not because they lack skill, but because others perceive them as less assertive. Stoicism teaches us that virtue must always be accompanied by strength. A kind person without inner authority is easily swayed. A kind person with conviction is immovable, gentle yet unbreakable. Ask yourself, in what parts of your life does your kindness get mistaken for weakness? How can you embody a quiet strength that commands respect without losing your warmth? The sixth danger of kindness is emotional exhaustion. Empathy is beautiful. It connects us to the suffering of others. But without limits, it can consume us. I've felt this myself. the fatigue that comes from absorbing too much of other people's pain. The Stoics practiced what they called apatheia, not apathy, but serenity amid emotion. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That includes the emotions of others. Today, psychologists call it emotional contagion, when we unconsciously absorb others' stress or sadness. Empaths and helpers are especially vulnerable to this. The key is not to harden your heart, but to guard your peace. Your empathy is like a flame. It can warm, but it can also burn if you hold it too close. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to listen without taking ownership of someone else's pain. Compassion doesn't mean carrying their suffering. It means understanding it and responding wisely. Reflect for a moment. How often do you exhaust yourself trying to fix what isn't yours to fix? What would it look like to love others while staying centered in your own calm? The seventh way kindness can backfire is by feeding guilt and obligation. Have you ever helped someone and then felt guilty for wanting space, or felt trapped by your own generosity, as if every yes chained you to another? That's because without mindful limits, kindness becomes a debt, one that others expect you to keep paying. The Stoics believed in voluntary service, not servitude. You act from virtue, not from compulsion. Seneca wrote, "No man can be grateful who thinks he pays his debt. When we give freely, without expectation, we are liberated. But when we give out of guilt, we're enslaved by our own conscience." Modern therapists often warn against this cycle, when kindness becomes a moral obligation rather than a free choice. True kindness can say no, it can rest, it can recharge. Ask yourself, are you helping out of love or out of guilt? And what would kindness look like if it included care for yourself too? The final shadow of kindness is perhaps the deepest. Sometimes being too kind to others makes us unkind to ourselves. We forget that we're also human, deserving of patience, forgiveness, and rest. We speak to others with gentleness, but to ourselves with cruelty. The Stoics saw self-care as an act of moral duty. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to return to his inner citadel, that private fortress of calm within the soul. Self-compassion isn't selfish, it's sustainable kindness. You can't pour from an empty vessel, as the saying goes. Every time you push past exhaustion, ignore your needs, or belittle your emotions in the name of being selfless, you chip away at your own strength. True kindness must include you. So pause for a moment. When was the last time you treated yourself with the same gentleness you offer others? When was the last time you forgave yourself fully? The Stoics taught that virtue lies in balance, in living according to nature, guided by wisdom. Kindness is one of humanity's greatest virtues, but like any good thing, it must be tempered. Compassion without clarity is chaos. Generosity without boundaries is depletion. Forgiveness without discernment is self-abandonment. As I look back on my own journey, I've learned that the kindest people are not the ones who never say no, but the ones whose yes comes from strength, not fear. They don't give because they must, but because they choose to. They know that true kindness is not weakness, it's courage. It's the courage to love with open eyes, to give with intention, and to stand firm in who you are. So if you've ever felt tired of being the nice one, know this: your kindness isn't the problem. It's your boundaries. It's your fear of letting someone down. It's your belief that saying no makes you unkind. But you can rewrite that. You can be both kind and strong, compassionate and honest, loving and firm. This week, try a simple practice. Before saying yes, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this out of love or out of fear? Does this act serve both of us or only them at my expense? That single moment of reflection can transform your kindness from a reflex into a conscious choice. And when you feel the urge to help, consider whether your help empowers or enables. If it empowers, give it freely. If it enables, hold back with wisdom. As you move through the days ahead, remember that Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about mastering it. It's not about hardening your heart, but about keeping it open and unbroken. The most powerful kindness is calm, grounded, and discerning. It doesn't need recognition. It doesn't fear rejection. It simply acts and lets go. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to reflect on your own relationship with kindness. Where have you been too generous for your own peace? Where have you confused self-sacrifice with love? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear how this topic shows up in your own life. And if you want to keep exploring Stoic wisdom and modern insights that help you live more intentionally, consider subscribing. Because the journey toward true kindness, wise, balanced, and strong, is one worth walking together.